All right, people, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to lecture number 3 from Polity in this lecture series called Prelims Powerplay 2026. Through this lecture series, we cover or we revise our entire syllabus for UPSC Prelims, the entire syllabus. This includes current affairs covered subject-wise as well as the associated static topics as well, because we all know that static topics which have some connection with current affairs have a higher probability of featuring in your prelims exam. You can expect an MCQ out of those static topics. Therefore, we will cover all the probable topics. Now, to really make your chances for prelims high, well, you need to follow this lecture series diligently and you have to follow these 4 steps. What are these 4 steps? Step number 1, watch the lecture regularly, diligently every day at 9 p.m. Never miss out on any lecture. Please don't keep your lectures pending. Then step number 2 is, along with the lectures, we will give you some notes. Now, those notes would contain all the information discussed in the lecture as well as some extra information. Memorize those notes. Then step number 3, well, we would enroll you in our WhatsApp groups. Those WhatsApp groups are specifically designed so that you can ask your doubts anytime as soon as they occur to you. So ask your doubts. And step number 4, very important. Well, along with this lecture series, you'll also be getting access to our test series, specifically designed for prelims. Make sure you are regular with those tests. Okay, do not miss out on tests. Tests are the most critical component of any prelims preparation. Clear? Now, as far as step number 1 is concerned, well, you don't have to worry about that. The lectures would drop on YouTube every day at 9 p.m. But for notes, for WhatsApp groups, and for tests, you would have to register on our app or on our website. The links to both are given in the comment section below this video. Okay, so just click on those links and you would get access to all these things. All right then, enough of the introduction. Let's straight away jump into today's lecture. And our today's topic of discussion is right to free speech. The reason why we are discussing right to free speech, which is a fundamental right covered under Article 19, is because there have been so many judgments with respect to right to free speech, plus this topic has been controversial, especially with respect to right to free speech on social media platforms. Okay, it has been discussed in the news quite a lot. It has dominated the news cycle of last year. Therefore, it is very important for us to know everything about Article 19 as well as the controversy surrounding social media giants with respect to free speech in India. Okay, so this topic is very important because it was highly discussed in 2025's news cycle. So pay close attention, give me your 100%, and we will cover everything. Anything related to free speech would now be known to you and you would solve all MCQs related to that. All right, okay then, let's begin today's discussion. So, Polity Lecture 3, Right to Free Speech. Okay, now right to free speech is basically covered under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. Okay, now there are 6 subclauses, A, B, C, D, E, G. Okay, F, there was once a subclause called F, that was right to property, but that was omitted. Okay, so Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A basically deals with right to free speech. And then B, C, D deal with other freedoms as well. Now, what are those other freedoms? Let's quickly discuss all of this. Basically, Article 19 is called right to freedoms, okay, or freedoms, because there are many freedoms that are guaranteed by Article 19. Free speech is just one of the 6 freedoms. In total, there are 6 core freedoms given under Article 19. So let's discuss all those 6 freedoms and some other facts about Article 19, and then we'll move on to free speech and the controversy surrounding it. Okay. Now, Article 19. So Article 19 guarantees 6 core freedoms to citizens. Now, what are those 6 core freedoms? Speech, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, that you can assemble anywhere, freedom to form associations like NGOs, freedom of movement anywhere in the country, freedom to residence, you can reside in any part of the country, and freedom of profession. You can profess or you can follow any profession. You can practice any profession. So these are the 6 core freedoms. Now, the thing is that these 6 core freedoms are given in Article 19, Clause 1. Okay. Subclause A deals with speech, subclause B deals with assembly, subclause C deals with association, subclause D deals with movement, subclause E deals with residence, and subclause G deals with profession. So clause 1 mentions these 6 core freedoms. Now you have to remember this, that these 6 core freedoms are not absolute in India. Government can apply reasonable restrictions on them. We all know that free speech in India is allowed, but hate speech in India is not allowed because reasonable restrictions can be applied on free speech. Similarly, all these freedoms, well, they can be restricted on reasonable grounds. Those are called reasonable restrictions. Now, for free speech, reasonable restrictions are mentioned in Article 19, subclause clause 2. Okay. Similarly, for assembly, restrictions are mentioned in 3. So, Article 19, clause 2 to clause 6 mentions reasonable restrictions. So, you understand the mechanics now. Article 19, clause 1 mentions all the freedoms, and clause 2 to clause 6 mentions those reasonable grounds on which the state can restrict your freedoms. Okay. So Article 19, clause 2 to 6 empower the state to impose reasonable restrictions only on specified grounds. Now those grounds are specified in the Constitution from 2 to 6, which must have rational nexus with the legitimate objective. Now, let's suppose the state restricts your freedom of speech, and state says that we are restricting this freedom of speech as per the reasonable grounds mentioned in Article 19, clause 2. But you disagree. You think that this restriction is not as per these grounds mentioned in the Constitution. You think that these restrictions are unreasonable, but the government thinks that these restrictions are reasonable. So who would have the final say, you or the government? Well, that final say would come from the courts, high courts and supreme courts. The courts would decide whether the restrictions are reasonable or not. So reasonableness is judged case by case, considering the nature of right that is being restricted, purpose of the law through which the restrictions are being put in place, urgency, if your speech is causing enmity between India and or destroying India's friendly relations with the neighborhood, well, that is problematic. Then proportionality of the restrictions with the freedoms that you're exercising, prevailing conditions. So courts judge the restrictions on the freedoms on a case to case basis. So courts would have the final say. Clear? So just remember this. Now these reasonable restrictions can be like public order, okay, morality, or brotherhood, to maintain fraternity in India. So these reasonable restrictions are like that: public order, morality, everything. Okay. So if your speech is causing riots, then that is disrupting public order. So your speech will be restricted. You understand? So these grounds are mentioned. By the way, in your notes, I have given a table which explains each and every clause one by one and the reasonable restrictions applicable on those clauses. Clear? So do memorize that table also, because if you'll memorize that table, Article 19 would be clear. No further questions would be asked. Okay, as far as the constitutional provisions with respect to Article 19 are concerned. Make sense? All right. Now, these 6 core freedoms, well, as I mentioned, Article 19, subclause A, freedom of speech and expression. And this freedom applies to expression by words, writing, printing, pictures. You share any pictures or any other communication medium that includes online communication as well. Then subclause B, freedom to assemble peaceably without arms, without guns, basically. Subclause C, freedom to form associations, unions, cooperative societies. D is right to move freely throughout the territory of India, but reasonable restrictions are applied. Then E, freedom to reside and settle in any part of India. And G, freedom to practice any profession or carry out any occupation, trade, or business. That is your freedom. By the way, there was subclause F also once, and that was right to property. Right to property at one point of time was a fundamental right, but it was removed from the category of fundamental right, okay, via 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. And they removed subclause F, right to property, and inserted a new article, Article 300A, in which right to property is given, Article 300A of the Constitution. So 44th Amendment Act of the Constitution basically removed right to property from the list of fundamental rights to a list of ordinary legal rights. So right to property is not a fundamental right, it's an ordinary legal right. There is a big difference, okay? So this is the thing. All right. Now, what happens to Article 19 during emergencies, especially national emergency? So Article 19 rights, all 6 core freedoms are automatically suspended only during national emergency. That is, national emergency as per Article 352. Not President's rule, state emergency or financial emergency, only national emergency. Okay. So remember, Article 19 is automatically suspended. So state can take away your freedoms if national emergency is there. But remember, national emergency can exist on 3 grounds. You can apply, state can basically proclaim national emergency on 3 grounds. If there is a war, if there is any external aggression, remember external, coming from a foreign country, okay, or there is armed rebellion within India. Armed rebellion within India, insurgency within India. Now remember, as per Article 358 of the Constitution, Article 19 will be automatically suspended only if the national emergency is because of war or external aggression. If national emergency is because of armed rebellion, well, Article 19 won't be automatically suspended. Remember this part, okay? This allows state to make laws or take actions that would otherwise violate Article 19 without challenge. So you can't go to the courts. Now, this part is important and I have mentioned this to you. This suspension does not apply to emergencies due to armed rebellion. Okay, and Article 19 revives automatically once the proclamation of emergency ends, once the emergency ends. So this is as per Article 358. Remember, Article 358 says that Article 19 would get automatically suspended during national emergency. But Article 359 says that during national emergency, President via a notification can suspend any of the fundamental rights except those mentioned in Article 20 and 21. But the difference between 359 and 358 is that under 358, Article 19 automatically suspends. Under 359, President has to pass a notification to suspend any fundamental right, which includes Article 19 as well, except Article 20 and 21. Okay. So this is the thing. Now some special facts about Article 19 which you should know. Okay. These are very important because if they would ask any question or any MCQ with respect to Article 19, they will definitely touch upon these special facts. So what are these special facts? Listen to me carefully. Article 19 of the Indian Constitution is largely self-executory. That means to execute Article 19, to give these freedoms, state does not have to pass any law, which is very different if you watched yesterday's lecture from Article 17, which abolishes untouchability. To abolish untouchability, Parliament has to pass a law. State has to pass a law, right? But for Article 19, these freedoms are automatically guaranteed. They don't require any law. They are self-executory. Okay? Then, remember, they are only available to Indian citizens, not foreigners. There are many fundamental rights that are available to foreigners in India as well. But this Article 19 is only available to Indian citizens, no foreigners, no legal entities. Like corporations also don't have these freedoms. Only citizens, individuals have these freedoms. Supreme Court ruled in 2023, Kaushal Kishore case, remember this case, that fundamental rights including Article 19 can be enforced against private individuals as well. So these freedoms, including freedom of speech and expression, well, it is not just available against the state, it is also available against other private individuals as well. So any private company cannot restrict your right to free speech. This was made clear by Supreme Court in Kaushal Kishore case. Remember this fact, okay? Now, this ruling solidifies that fundamental rights have horizontal application. Okay, so there are two terms. Application of fundamental rights, remember these terms. Vertical application, that means fundamental rights are only available against the state. And then there is horizontal application, which means fundamental rights are available against the state as well as private individuals as well. This is horizontal application. So remember, Article 19 is horizontally applicable as per this new ruling of the Supreme Court. There are many rights that are vertically applicable only. Okay, like right to equality, then many other, freedom of religion and all, they are vertically applicable. But Article 19 is horizontally applicable. Remember this part. Okay. Now, in your notes, I have given two tables. One table mentions all the landmark cases, Supreme Court judgments with respect to Article 19. And then there are 4-5 cases with respect to Article 19 in the year 2025. These two tables are given in your notes. Do go through them as well. All right. And now let's move on to the most important current affair of 2025 as far as fundamental rights are concerned, and that is Section 69A versus Section 79 of IT Act. IT Act stands for Information Technology Act. It was enacted in 2000. Okay, so Section 69A versus Section 79A of IT Act. And the reason why this is in the news, Section 69A and 79A, is because X, earlier called Twitter, fought a case against Union of India with respect to these provisions only. Okay, now remember, IT Act or these two sections basically regulate free speech or speech on online platforms. Okay, so free speech can be exercised anywhere, but free speech on online platforms is basically regulated via these two sections of IT Act. Now, to understand the difference between the two, okay, Section 69A and 79, well, you need to understand one key term, which we have discussed in our current affairs lectures as well, but I'll repeat it again. Okay, this key term is important for you to understand the difference between these two. Okay, and that is safe harbor immunity. Now, listen to me very carefully. Your right to free speech is basically restricted on reasonable grounds. That means that you cannot basically give communally charged speech. Okay, you cannot give a speech that would cause riots. You cannot give a speech that would violate a woman's decency, morality, would violate public order. Okay, the speech of yours is restricted on these grounds. There are laws in place, and if you give a speech that violates any of these reasonable restrictions, well, you might go to jail also. It's a criminal offense. Clear? Now let's suppose you have your own website, and on your website you write something that basically violates a woman's decency, causes riots, or basically violates all these reasonable restrictions. Then the state has all the right to take action against you. Government has all the right to take action against you. That is there. But, so remember this. If on any website there is any speech that violates reasonable grounds, the owner of that website would be prosecuted. Simple. But that is not applicable on social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And why not? Well, if you post something inflammatory on Facebook, you have posted that thing. Okay, Facebook shouldn't be held responsible for it. Facebook just gave you the platform. You were the one who made that speech, which violated Indian law. So you would be prosecuted, not Facebook. So anything bad posted on social media platforms won't put social media platforms in jeopardy, or won't give state the right to prosecute so owners of social media platforms. Only the people would be held responsible, not social media platforms. Natural, very simple. Yes, it's not Mark Zuckerberg's mistake or Elon Musk's mistake that you have posted something inflammatory on their platforms, right? Now, this immunity that Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, this immunity that they get is called the safe harbor immunity. Okay, but safe harbor immunity can be restricted. Let's suppose you posted something inflammatory which violates Indian law on Facebook. Okay, and this is causing problems in India. So Indian government reaches out to Facebook and says that remove this content. But if Facebook refuses to do so, if Facebook does not remove that content, then the safe harbor immunity to Facebook would go away. So this safe harbor immunity only exists if Facebook abides by government notifications. Make sense? Clear? But Facebook said that governments generally send random notifications also. sometimes the speech is not inflammatory, but still they would give us a takedown notice that take this speech down, take this speech down. If an opposition party member said something critical about the ruling government can give a notification that take this speech down. Okay. Now this is against freedom of speech and expression. Facebook rose this issue. Even X also rose this issue. So for that, section 69A was added, that all takedown requests by the government should follow certain safeguards, should abide by certain safeguards. It shouldn't be random, arbitrary. Okay. So those takedown notices should be logical. Okay. And safeguards were given to make sure that these notices are logical. Clear? So this was section 69A. Now let's talk about 69A. So 69A and 79 of the IT Act 2000 serve distinct roles in content regulation and intermediary liability, often debated in Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A, which is free speech. Okay? And this famous case, X Corporation versus Union of India. So section 69A empowers government blocking with procedural safeguards. So government can give blocking orders, but they have to abide by certain rules. But section 79, under section 79, government can give blocking orders and they don't have to abide by any rules. So Twitter, X, Elon Musk basically filed a case in the Supreme Court saying, first Karnataka High Court, okay, they filed a case that now government is not giving takedown notices under section 69A because that would require them to follow certain rules and safeguards. Now they are giving takedown requests under section 79A. And if we do not abide by their request, they say that your safe harbor immunity would go. So the idea was that Union of India is using section 79A to give arbitrary blocking orders. Okay. X-Corp challenged government misuse of section 79 for blocking orders, bypassing section 69A safeguards. Courts clarified that 69A is the primary blocking tool. 79 can only be used as a substitute, not as a primary blocking tool. So, well, courts kind of sided with Elon Musk, kind of. Okay, you understand? Now, the difference between 69A and 79 is also given in a table form in your notes. Do go through this as well. The procedural safeguards are given in the table as well. Clear? Make sense? All right. With that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it would add more value if you follow these 4 steps, which I mentioned in the beginning of the lecture. So follow those 4 steps, register for Prelims Powerplay, click on the links given in the comment section below. And I shall take your leave with the promise of seeing you again with another topic in this lecture series called Prelims Powerplay. Thank you, everyone.